I create the artwork. Oftentimes it's a drawing or painting or photograph, and then I transfer the image to the computer where it's worked and formatted. The image is then printed, allowed to dry, and I cut the canvas. Once the canvas is dry, we then laminate it. Everything is made from our shop in Rhode Island, and we are currently selling in nearly 300 stores around the world. We're always testing and developing new materials, coming up with ways to make our designs even better than they've ever been before. My team are all my friends. We work really hard, but we're having a lot of fun doing this, and I'm so excited to share our work with new audiences all around the world. I like to think that our bags are kind of an icebreaker. They allow someone to instantly say something about themselves without even having to open their mouth. Hello, I am Kent Stetson, founder of Kent Stetson Handbags. Established in 2003, we make an instantly recognizable wardrobe staple enjoyed by celebrities and collectors worldwide.
You know what? I just love a nice, clean, like just here's my elevator pitch. Nice, crisp. I love it. Love it so much. Kent, thank you very much for being here. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Automatically, Clark Kent, the glasses. Come on. I mean, how many times have people mentioned that in your lifetime?
I had nothing to do with the name. I was blessed. My father and my grandfather both have the same name as me. So yeah, Clark Kent, I will take it.
But you know what? And I love that you said that. I love how you just said this because for every single person we talk to, we start from the younger you. So we need to understand who Kent was before the business. So who's little Kent? Little Kent to, let's just talk about little Kent up to college.
I think you can kind of take it all in just by what you see here. So my company is an eponymous label, which means that it's my name on the company name. And so the product is very much me. My DNA is on display here with what's behind me. And I wake up every day feeling like I'm doing the thing that I was born to do. And so this really ties into who I was as a little kid as well.
Well, you know what? And that was not a great answer. I'm going to call you out because we want to know who you are. Like, so where are you? Where are you from?
Sure.
Tell us, I mean, like literally, like from where how you were raised. What were you going to do before the bag? Because I mean, obviously you've done many things. I'm assuming you've done a few things before, like again before the company. But I want to know who you were up till college years.
So my father's a third generation. My mother has horses, and it's a large horse farm, and there's a big maple sugaring operation. And my parents are both very hands-on kind of people where they were making things. It was never a mystery to me as a kid that things come from somewhere because I saw my parents making things, and they grew. They've been organic gardening since the early 70s, and so I kind of grew up in this sort of hippie kind of time warp where things were very much natural, back to the earth kinds of people, but I was allowed to play with glitter and express my creativity, and my parents just sort of let me be the person that I was born. And so the expression of myself as a child is very much the same as the expression of myself, well, in many ways, very similar to that now. Shoes kind of point they nerf on them. So yeah, so I'm kind of I was sort of fully formed as a baby in many ways, and my parents just let me go with that. They didn't stifle me. It wasn't a cosmopolitan setting, and so I did know at a young age that the city was calling. I had to put that call on hold for 18 years, but when I graduated from high school, I went to Brown University, moved to Providence, Rhode Island, and Providence is now home. So I may not have satisfied your question fully, but I am going to stick to my guns and say that I'm not that different now than I was as a very small child.
You did satisfy my question, so thank you so very much. I go, you know what? People always assume that I want more. I'm like, no, I'm like, it's your story, and I just want to understand. So your parents were, would you say that they were entrepreneurs, innovators? Because sometimes, well, most times, a young child, you just mentioned it. You're watching your parents let you just like grow, like your parents let you blossom to be who you are. And a lot of entrepreneurs have the same path. So were they entrepreneurs? Were they just like basically were they putting you in situations where you saw people that were just creative as well?
Yes, and this is actually a really good point. Growing up on a farm was the best training for the entrepreneurship path. Entrepreneurship is a lifestyle. It is not so much a career choice. And so on a farm, the animals don't take a day off. You gotta work, you gotta feed them, you have to clean their stalls, they need attention. And being an entrepreneur is sort of like that. You don't really get a day off. And for a lot of people, that is not normal and that is not healthy. But if you've grown up in farm life, it is normal. And so this was kind of embedded that the entrepreneur's lifestyle is totally normal. I grew up knowing that every day there was work to be done, and there's a sort of cycle the year, depending on the weather, the type of work that you did would change, but there was work that needed to be tended every day. No days off, and it's okay. It's actually healthy when this is the lifestyle that you breathe. And so you have a rhythm where you do get some downtime throughout the course of the day and at certain times of the year, but it is a 365 day a year thing, being an entrepreneur. And I think most entrepreneurs would agree that that's the case. You don't have a day where you just get to table everything and ignore. Rarely would that happen. So
can I just tell you, you just nailed that so well. We could possibly just end this right now, because that was like, I walk away where I'm like, we're pulling out the nuggets of gold. That was it. Most people don't, you're right. People don't think it's normal. What we do, people don't understand. They're like, you're a smart person. You went to Brown. Why don't you get a real job? Like, what? I don't understand. Why would you do this? Like, you're putting so much risk on the table. And you just nailed it in regards of, it is, you're right. It's not normal what we do. It's very unique. We want to save the world. We want to change the world. We want to make the world better in our way. We saw something that was just different, and we're like, you know what? We can tweak this a little bit more. So I'm going to steal your analogy, because that's like the best. Like, well, you know what? Teachers are disregarded. Farmers are disregarded. And that's one of those moments where I'm like, we are dependent on and nurses. Nurses, teachers, and farmers are disregarded, as in like, oh, it's just a good job. These three industries are fueling our world, and yet they are always working. A teacher is always working. A nurse is always working. A farmer is always working. And when things go bad, people just blame them because they've done something wrong. They're like, no, it's not me. So I love that you just used that analogy. What was your major at Brown University, and why did you choose Brown?
Sure. So part of the reason I chose Brown was that I didn't have to choose. I was pre-medicine, philosophy, and visual art. Okay. And I knew that I wanted to be the modern Renaissance man. And there were not a lot of schools where that was an option. The places where I did get in I had a couple of schools that said these options are open to you up to a certain point. Come your junior year, you're going to have to pick one and a half of those things. So Brown was like, come on over. So
we'll let you do everything.
it was a natural fit for me. I will say I did have to study during the summer most terms in order to complete my requirements within each of the concentrations, but that gave me a chance to do coursework at Dartmouth and Harvard and UNH and elsewhere. So I got to cast a net outside beyond Brown, and then studied abroad for a couple of semesters as well. So Brown chose me.
I have like a, I feel that lately, and I don't know if you were part of that the group of the students, but I find lately I have a lot of entrepreneurs coming and asking for mentorship from Brown. Brown, in my mind, was never a place where I would ever assume there'd be entrepreneurs coming from. But I'm seeing more and more students that are going that track of entrepreneurship. Do they have courses that they're leading you guys to do that, or is it just like all of a sudden, because it's a small? I mean, Rhode Island's a one of the smallest states. Not one of it. It is the smallest state. Are they having a brain drain? Like what is happening in Rhode Island that all of a sudden Brown has become the place where entrepreneurs are stemming from, even just Rhode Island overall?
Yeah. So it's a kind of a long answer. I think Brown is a great place to discover who you're not, and they embrace that. The person who comes in at 18 is not going to be the person who walks out the gates at 22. And so a lot of this was me accepting that I was an artist, and what that would come to mean. Nowadays, Brown has the Nelson Center for Entrepreneurship, which was previously part of the engineering department. So entrepreneurship and engineering were part of the same department at Brown, and now entrepreneurship has its own facility, and they've been pumping a lot of energy and bringing in entrepreneur in residence to the university. And so they are flexing their muscles a little bit in terms of, now entrepreneurs typically start with a fundraising. They have an idea and then they do all this fundraising. And maybe the kind of entrepreneurship that Brown is encouraging is very different than my kind of entrepreneurship, which was, this is a kind of connecting the dots. And when something that I had wanted to do didn't really work out according to plan, being okay with plan B. And so, and it unfolded organically for me in a way that I think now students who come to Brown are kind of tracked into entrepreneurship as something to pursue as part of their presenting new ideas and new methodologies to the world. And fundraising is a huge part of that at Brown. Whereas for me, it was, would you like to buy a bag and find my entrepreneurship? So I had a very tangible product that was not an abstract, would you like to finance the idea of this project that I'm telling you about?
Yes.
Would you like to support my entrepreneurial ambitions? Great, please buy a bag.
No, and keep doing that. I like that. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. I will not be upset at this at all. What happened? So you graduate from college. You have what degree again?
Philosophy. So I guess it's called a liberal arts degree, but it was the whole pre-medical track coursework, and then philosophy and visual art. So I completed the course requirements of those three entities. And my senior year at Brown, I started getting really into new media and using computers to paint. I also worked at a shoe store as an undergrad to give me a little bit of spending money so that I could hang with all of the fancy kids at Brown. And so I had and when I graduated, I didn't really have a plan except that I was going to create a body of artwork, and I was going to figure out how to show this work. And I was going to work in the shoe store to pay the rent while I figured that stuff out. And it turned out I would go home, and it wasn't usual for someone where I'm from to go to a place like Brown, and people would comment, well, you went to Brown so that you could work in a shoe store? What am I supposed to say to that? Yes, I did that. Well, it turns out that the shoe store was like the golden ticket to this. understanding the end user transaction was so helpful for me. Understanding that not in abstract terms, but in very concrete terms, how it is that a product ends up in the consumer's hands. And then also understanding how it is that a product ends up on the shelf prior to it ending up in the customer's hands.
Yep.
And then also understanding how the salesperson on the floor is integral to those things all connecting. And it gave me a training that I couldn't have gotten in grad school. It was really much in the field, in the trenches. And at the time, I was a little ashamed of my kind of being, maybe I peaked early and I got into Brown and then I graduated and that was it. I was, and so I did have a little bit of anxiety or self-doubt or feelings of inadequacy. And I'm glad that I let it simmer a long enough time, because now I'm actually very proud of those roots of this. I feel like having a relatively successful self-sufficient company is the result of being humbled by the optics not being that I was doing all that well with my life, where expectations had been so high. I was a letdown to myself and in the eyes of other people, and just kind of being okay with that and still being me has, in the long run, has worked out really well.
I love that the transparency, the candor about that. People that, entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses, they are ashamed about talking about when things go wrong. They just assume if I'm going this route, everything should go well, or at least I should appear for everyone else to look like it does well. I, like you, where I worked in the media for 10 years. I was an educator. I worked in media for 10 years. I was a press secretary to a governor, did everything right, went to school, got the degrees, did everything right. Sitting in my MBA class and the world imploded in 2008 recession. And I'm told I'm overqualified. I'm like, what is that overqualified thing you talk about? I go, that's like crazy, you're overqualified. And the humbling part where all my things were put in storage. I had to give up my apartment. All my things were put in storage. I had to rent the top part of a house. It was just one of those moments where, like, humble pie is like, it's tasty, but it's not so tasty. But it really does teach you in regards to how resilient you are. And when you have the highs, the lows, you can sustain the lows because you've been preparing for this. So the way you've worked hard your entire life. I'm sure on the farm, they didn't let you sleep in, I'm assuming.
Oh, no. And I dreaded snow days where they say now, well, let the kids have their snow days. We were outside breaking our backs shoveling. I was like, please do not call school off today. I cannot do this.
So it's in your DNA. The work ethic is there. And even though there was a humble pie, you were still able to, like, I go, I'm going to hustle. I'm a hustler. I work hard. I'm not going to let this go, which is like one of the things that I love so much about our community. We're too small to fail. And because we're so small, we will do whatever it takes to be creative and get to our end goal, which is fantastic. You graduated from college. You're at the shoe, so it's college and then shoe store. Is there something in between?
Yeah, I was working at the shoe store as an undergrad, and I graduated, and I continued working at a different store, but in Providence still, and putting together my portfolio to make my debut into the art world. And can I talk about that a little bit?
Are you kidding me? Hello.
I spent a year working on this.
Ken, I just want you to explain something. This is all about you right now. This is all you.
So I spent the year after graduating working full time, and in my spare time putting together this body of work. And I had an exhibit at a gallery of these pieces, and it was beautiful, and it seemed like kind of a see and be seen event at the opening. And the show was up for 5 weeks. At the time, I lived in a 400 square foot apartment, and I had a big, giant digital printer that I moved in that took up like a huge chunk of the apartment. And the show ran, and the show ended. And every single piece came off the wall and back into my 400 square foot apartment. So sales just didn't connect there. And that was not the plan. So I would go back from the shoe store at the end of the day to this apartment that was completely taken over by all this art that couldn't even fit on the walls. It was just stacked. And I started cutting the pieces up and sewing them into bags. And I brought them to the shoe store where I worked at the time, and they sold right away. So I did not know people who had bare walls and nice houses at the time, but I did know people who liked to buy shoes and bags. And this all kind of connected with my gift of enticing people to buy shoes and bags that they didn't really need. And so this is kind of an extension of my gift, if you will. And it was an opportunity to take one thing, pivot, plan B. So, you know, I cut up all of my paintings and sewed them into bags. And then I thought, okay, well, now I'll put a cookie on a bag because why not? And so in the way that artists will make limited edition prints that they frame and hang on the wall, I do the same thing, just in a slightly different format. So I do sign each piece. It turned out this was a framing device. I did not need to be making wall accessories. Making accessories for our activities in life is actually, it turns out, more interesting as art than making something for someone's wall.
Wait, I have to stop you for a quick second.
Yeah.
You took time, you painted these amazing things. I mean, one, how did you even learn how to make a bag? And two, did it hurt to like cut up your art?
I didn't really think too much about it because the pieces were actually process works anyway. They started out as drawings, collage, paint, mixed media, and I displayed them on the floor first. And people walked all over them, and then I took them up and I photographed them and I digitally manipulated them and turned them into prints and ran them through the printer. So this actually just felt like an extension of the process.
Okay.
It wasn't like, I thought it was done. And, you know, an artist deciding when a work is done is 95% of the challenge of creating art is when to stop. Well, just keep going. I haven't stopped yet. I'm still actually, to this very day, reworking this piece, which is from that original exhibition. And I just this past season worked with a perfumer and we developed a fragrance that ties into this piece. So it's now become ephemera as well.
Wait. Let's go back to that bag. Bag. So when you say you partner with a fragrance person, all right. So we've gone from art, from the wall, the purse. Before we go to that, how did you learn how to make purses?
Sure. Okay. So I grew up on a horse farm. My mom makes harnesses and maintains bridles and saddles. And I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called Gucci or Coach. They all began as tack companies. Today, you know, you'll see the horse buckle on a pair of Gucci loafers. That's referencing origins in saddlery and tack. Hermes to this day still makes saddles as well. So there is a long tradition between tack, saddlery, and bag making or cobblery. It's the same craft. So I had a little bit of technical training watching my mom as a kid working, fashioning rawhide, staining it, and turning it into harnesses and repairing her tack. And around this time, I met my now husband, so 20 years ago, and we're out, and I pointed at an antique industrial sewing machine, and I said, I'd really like that sewing machine to really learn how to sew. And that was the first gift Louise ever gave me. And 20 years later, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. And so all the dots connect, right? It's cool.
Well, and this is what I love, where I saw you. So I met you at an artisan's fair here in Marblehead, where I live. And I'm like, and I went in because there's two friends that were there, and I'm like, I'm going to come just to support you, say hi. And I was just going away for 4th of July weekend, and so I'm like, I'm the last minute person where I'm like, I just need a gift, so I'm going to hurry up and get a gift. And then I stumbled on you. I mean, was this the first time you were in Marblehead? Because I had never seen you before.
No, I have a really loyal following in Marblehead. They just kind of get me there.
100%.
So we're all like, they feel my frequency in Marblehead. You know, we don't blend in at Kent Stetson Handbags, and people in Marblehead seem to really appreciate the artist's way, you know, and that we move a little differently through the world. And they are there for it. In Marblehead, even in the rain, they came out. So
even the rain. Well, I mean, so this town is, I mean, I feel like this is where the artists come to live after they've had their career. So they've had their full career and artists come here. I mean, it is insane how creative people are here. I mean, I'm part of a food farm share here, and every single week when we get our farm share, it is a competition who can cook whatever's, and the pictures of whatever we cooked are legit. I mean, people don't. There's no like, oh look, I just took a picture of a. I mean, like, it's like the angle, the lighting. I mean, everyone takes their art serious here, which is such a wonderful place to live. And I feel like that all coastal towns like really pull in the artists. I mean, like the nature makes us who we are, which is phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, you know, you randomly just stumbled upon you, like you were on my path, and your smile was like a full-on Kool-Aid smile. And like, I go, he is in the rain, he has leather goods, and he is smiling from ear to ear. I'm like, who is he? And I need to know who he is. And then of course, I mean, I'm a talker, but I love watching people. So I walked away and I stood by the stairwell going into the town hall, and I was watching you with people, and I was watching the harem of people that were just right by you, and they were just talking, and they were so excited, and they were laughing, and just the interaction with you. And I was looking at everyone else, and not that people weren't interacting, but they were having fun. They were having fun with you, whether they were buying or not. They walked away happy in the rain, and I'm like, I don't know who he is, but again, I need to have him on the podcast. And also I need to get to know him a little bit better, because one, you're teaching me so many things, because I didn't even know about the whole entire concept of the leather. I mean, I didn't know that. That's amazing. But you have you're calming, but you're fun. So you have a little bit of it's like the candy, a Sour Patch Kids. You're a little bit sweet and sour. You're both at the same time. I like it. All right. So
this is something that you just said that I think is an important point that I try to make to when I'm in a store meeting the sales associates. And I think this is true for all entrepreneurs. So we are storytellers. And I feel as though the transaction the product is a souvenir of our conversation or our relationship. And so someone's going to leave with the bag or not, but when they do, it's often partially as a result of our time together, and it's sort of like the souvenir of that. Now, when someone carries one of my bags, they become, even if they don't buy anything from me, after someone has met me, I want to feel convinced that they are, to a certain extent, an educated ambassador of my work, and they can speak to. Well, there's a lot of Kent stories floating around when I don't speak in the third person very often, but people. You recognize this now. I'm very fortunate to have landed on a product that has instant recognizability, that you can just identify immediately when you see it. You may not know the print, but you know it's a Kent bag. And so I tell people in a store that they are the sale is the piece is often a token of the relationship with the customer. And when someone comments on one of the bags, which they do. No one is quiet when they see one of these walking into the room. The person who's carrying it can then say, "Oh yes, the designer is someone that I met, and he used to be an artist, and now he makes these bags. Now I'm still an artist, but yeah." So the transaction is a result of storytelling and real relationships. And what you were watching was me really connecting with people, like for real.
Well, and I think that's the thing where you're connecting with individuals and they remember that and they want to support you.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, on a good day, customer service is dead. On a good day, customer service is dead. And people, when they have good customer service, it's like they remember when I was younger, I had this, or I remember that one restaurant that I went to and someone was kind to me. Customer service, when it happens, is like, it's like the old new where someone sends you a handwritten note, you're like, oh my God, that was a handwritten note. Yes, some people still do that. Like, I've never had one. I don't remember the last time I got one.
If I had one bit of advice to an entrepreneur, it is to send a handwritten thank you card. There is no better investment in your business than doing that. I have had the craziest things happen in my life as a result of that thank you card, like flying to someone's castle.
Give me one.
Would you like to come to my castle?
What?
Okay. And then last weekend, someone said, would you like to come to the island with me? That was a thank you card that made that happen. So
that's pretty awesome.
And I have every birthday, every holiday, I have spouses who reach out to me because I sent them a thank you card after their first purchase, a week or so later in the mail, they get a card from me. And every time there's a holiday or something, they say, and you're going to send a card with it, right? Do it. I mean, it's like people are shocked when they get something in the mail that is not a solicitation or a bill. So
my best friend Christina is, I should introduce you guys because she is queen of cards. My mother, Christina, are full on competition of how much they can keep Hallmark in business because they will send a card for everything. And like, I leave Christina, I'm like, dude, when did you mail it? She's like, I mailed it before I left your town. I'm like, of course you did. Because she leaves and I get it either the same day or the next day. And I'm like, that's just silly. You were with me. She's like, I love doing it. And I do the same exact thing, but I take it for granted because I do, your birthday is such an important holiday that people are like, it's just a birthday. I'm like, no, it's a holiday. And I make it a holiday for people by sending cards and doing silly things. But people they forget. They're moving too fast. And when it happens, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Well, buying something like this, whether maybe you're seeing me in a tent in the rain somewhere, or maybe you're seeing me in a store, in a department store in some city somewhere. Yeah. It should be a little glamorous and it should feel special. And I believe in that it still can be. It's up to me to make that the case, though. No one else is going to do it, for me. And there was this moment in Marblehead where a customer who comes every year, she was in my booth and she was eating an ice cream. And I thought, this is the most fun thing you can imagine, eating an ice cream and shopping for a dressy bag. Like, how in the moment is this person right now? She gets it. I am here for it. And stores might be like, well, you can't have that ice cream cone.
Well, I was going to say that. Most people they would freak out if someone came to their with their leatherware. So you again made them feel comfortable about it. I'm going to switch gears for a little bit.
I just the lead.
No, what?
I followed her lead. I was like, we're going with this. Fine.
I love it. No, it's fun. And mind you, we eat ice cream no matter what here. So, our ice cream shops are open all year long. Snow, rain, you're going to see people walking around with snow, like ice cream cones. I'm like, I love this town so much.
The Marblehead folks are very hardy. It's those seafaring folks, I think. They just, the weather doesn't hold them back.
If you leave Marblehead, I go, you see normal people. And they're like, well, how best would you describe people in Marblehead? I go, we're salty dogs. But windows are open all year long because we want the fresh air. I go, when a storm is coming, you'll see all the old, young, all lined up on the water because we want to see the waves. We're just, it's an odd place, but it's a wonderful place all at the same time. All right, we're getting off of Marblehead. We're getting back to you.
Okay.
January, February 2020, the buzz is starting to happen in regards of things are starting to shut down. Pandemic, Italy, Asia. What happens to you? So from the pandemic on, what happened? What was your year like from the time that you heard the buzz and then when everything got shut down to now?
Okay, so in December of 2019, I do the Grand Central Holiday Market every year. So I'm in my booth in Grand Central for 45 days. And we saw it from a distance. And by the time I was back in New York for market in February, we knew that cases had already. We knew something was coming.
You froze for a little bit.
This is something you spoke to earlier.
You froze just for a little bit.
Something that you spoke to earlier. Okay,
I'm sorry.
So I was. So I was back in New York for market at the Javits Center in February, and we already had cases reported in the US. And so we knew this was coming, and we did not know what it meant for us. I mean, I can't stop. I just have to keep going. And something that you spoke to earlier, too small to fail, really rang true through the duration of the pandemic. So I make a going out bag. Quarantine and pandemic doesn't really jive with that. So, but I am small enough where I, because I built my safety net. I can actually make a bag start to finish on my own in my safe bubble of a studio. I have staff, but as soon as things went into lockdown, they went home and worked remotely where possible and collected where that was the best option for the moment. Now, when the first round of PPP came out, I knew it was going to big companies, not someone with 5 employees like me. And so I realized that they were out of the gate just grabbing the money. And I knew that, well, we've got this unemployment thing. So we sort of worked with that. And I continued to come in working at the studio. I decided at the start of the pandemic that we were a media company and that we were going to focus on storytelling. And we were going to harness our following on social media. I was going to do the same thing that I was doing in person, but I was going to do it behind a screen, which is what most people did. And we already had kind of an established online business. People knew KentStetson.com is a website where you go and you buy things, where you look, but there's a click to purchase on that. And I already had that set up. So I've been marketing my website for years. So I was a little prepared. We operate on 3 channels. We have our wholesale business, we have our direct-to-consumer online business, and then we have our in-person business. 2 of those went out the window, wholesale and in-person gone. So I was direct-to-consumer, e-commerce, predominant. I mean, I had a handful of accounts like in Florida, the Twilight Zone down there, where what pandemic. I had some business down there still, but really I thought, well, we're going to make lots of content that people are going to sit and watch, and they're going to watch sewing bags and telling stories. And, people are still having significant birthdays, milestones. So I focused on gifting and our collectors. And so people who needed a very thoughtful gift for someone who had a big birthday, and it happened to be a bummer that it was happening during a pandemic. But, instead of going out and buying that really fancy bottle of wine at dinner, you've got a little money to play around with gifting. And so we came up with some really cool custom gifts. I do all the printing here in the studio as well, so we can put anything onto the bag. And we got creative, and so we did customization, and then my collectors as well. And I also partnered with charities throughout the pandemic. So organizations that still had these fundraising needs that could not host events the way that they had. I said, listen, I've made these 3 pieces that tie in your mission. The look of the bags is something that translates your work, whether it incorporated their logo. But I made these custom pieces, and I said, I recorded a little video where I introduced myself, and I sent it to them, and I said to the board members, you're going to email this to your friends and your family, and you're going to say, if you purchase something from Kent Stetson or any of these pieces, we get a cut of that. And so we joined forces, and we were able to keep my business. The end line for 2020 was only off by like $20,000 from the year before for me.
That's fantastic.
I mean, my expenses went way down. I lived in a hotel room 120 nights in 2019. And all that travel stuff, didn't factor into my cash flow needs for 2020 because there wasn't travel. So by cutting our expenses and getting creative, we made it work. And throughout, I'm an optimist. And so I think that a lot of successful entrepreneurs are resourceful, but ultimately optimists. Hey, what's the angle? Because it's not, and so I remained optimistic. I also, with what I do, I had to not be tone deaf. That things in the world were really bad, and there was sort of this these several global crises were on collision. We had this horrible political environment. We had conversations about race that I needed to sit back and let other people talk and absorb what they're talking about. And so I had to be very careful about how I was promoting my work and the times in which I was doing that, to not appear tone deaf to the fact that there is some more important stuff than this right now. And also, I know people whose lives were completely upended, whose work disappeared. And the fact is, the seas kind of parted for me a little bit. And how fortunate was I? It wasn't lost on me the whole time. And so the pandemic was like, you know, a moment of extended need for gratitude that I felt. And it turned out, and I think some other entrepreneurs will agree, it wasn't all bad. I had been so busy with a full calendar that I had paused to assess, well, what is actually at this point, after being in business for 20 years, still worth my energy? And what is an unnecessary expenditure of my limited energy resources? And that was it was a key moment for me to reassess some things and think about making my work a little smarter than it had been. It was simply just, well, fill the calendar, which had been my business, you know, my approach, my methodology. If something doesn't work out, it doesn't matter, because I've got something that I'm doing next weekend.
So it seems like, it seems like you were burning and churning. So you're burning and churning, and the pandemic basically had you slow down. What did you learn during that time, number one, for yourself, that you would have never learned if there wasn't a pandemic? And also, how did you take care of your team? Your team left you for a period of time. So how were you balancing although they're not on your payroll, were you still involved in their lives? Because I think that's one of the things I heard a lot, was a lot of business owners didn't realize that XYZ comes to work, I pay XYZ, they go home, I don't know what their home lives were. And I go in during the pandemic, for a lot of individuals, they were just like, this is I'm scared, I'm tense, I'm stressed out, I do want to go back. So how did you take care of yourself? What did you learn from this time? And how did you take care of your team?
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate that I have a house with some room to move around, and I have the exercise bike where they yell at you and they blow up your inbox and they infiltrate your dreams at night. And so I had a fitness routine that was life-saving. I mean, it really kept me sane. And cooking a meal became the event, the entertainment for me as well. And so I got to give things more time than I had previously allowed or been able to. And that was part of my self-care. And giving myself the liberty to sleep in the morning and come in a little bit later and work different hours and bring.
And when was the last time you slept in before the pandemic?
I don't know. And so, and with regard to my staff, I did keep one person on full time because we were a media company, and I needed someone for me to know that they were on full time, so that they weren't going to be kind of dabbling in other ventures that could be a conflict of interest or whatever. So I needed to preserve my my media company endeavors. And then the other employees had kids in school, and really they were homeschooling. And so I said to everyone, if you are in trouble, if you are not able to make ends meet, please let me know. We will come up with a plan. And so I put that out there, but then I gave people space. I didn't need to listen. Everyone was dealing with stuff. I was here. I was available with an ear, but I was not up in their business. I was not harping on them or snooping or being nosy. And you know, giving them their space to be with their families and address their own needs without report back to me. You know, these are my friends that work for me. We spend a lot of time together, and the corporate culture at Kent Stetson Handbags is very nice. It's a fun work environment and it's friendly, but I also don't want people to feel as though I own them in their personal time. And so my way of taking care of them was to let them know that the lines of communication are open, but they are not forced to take use of them. And since then, my staff all found equal or better employment compensation paths or have come back.
Nice. Oh my God, that's amazing. From the time that you started your business to now, if anyone, like for whoever, I should say, if anyone, for whoever's listening to you right now, what were the highs and what were the lows of starting your own business? Because you're an artist. And I don't know if Brown has that whole entire essence of teaching you, or you watched your parents, then you're in school, but you're an artist and now you are in charge. So when you're an artist, the gallery is usually in charge of doing all the work and you get that paycheck. So now you are fully doing the marketing, you're doing the operations, you're doing the hiring, you're doing the finances, you're doing all of it. And now obviously technology. So what are the highs and lows of starting your own business? Because there's so many people that walk out of a business and say, like, walk out of a corporate organization, and they're like, I know how to do this task and I know I can do it better than the company I'm working in. And they forget about all the other things that come with running a business.
Yeah. So I think it ties in a little bit to that thing when I was in college and I knew that I wanted to be like the modern Renaissance man. There is no part of my brain and very little of my body that is not somehow activated in this whole process. And it's a specific type of person, but to feel as though you're not ignoring anything, you're using all of the tools that you have and you're developing and cultivating all of them. That to me is it's a need for me in my professional work to feel as though I'm using everything I got, and it makes me feel whole and complete. The lows usually involve artists have feelings, and that's part of what we're channeling, our emotions, and therefore the capacity to feel hurt on a profound level is there also. And so the lows probably involved having my feelings hurt by someone that maybe whose opinion I cared about, or having a relationship suffer as a result of a short circuit when push comes to shove with business matters. Those have been the lows. And sometimes I've had to, dealing with failure. I did a trade show once and I didn't sell anything. And I've done markets in the past where I've set up already for transactions and things just didn't pan out. And fortunately, I was raised to have enough self-confidence and fortitude to power through. But we all experience highs and lows, whether or not we're entrepreneurs, but the stakes are a little bit higher as an entrepreneur, in that you don't punch in and punch out and collect a paycheck and a pension. So it's a little scarier. And
just
fear,
a little bit.
Yeah, and fear can be elevated for someone who has to be so accountable, especially as an employer when you're accountable for people's paychecks clearing. So and how's that going to happen this week? I didn't quite nail it this past week. So I have had to part ways with some people that I really wish that I hadn't had that experience before. Customer service isn't something that I love every aspect of, but I do love what I do. And customer service can be a little unsavory when dealing with someone who is managing their personal issues, and I've become a lightning rod for whatever charge they're carrying around. We all experience that.
Yeah, I feel like that's happening more and more now as the world is the country, because the world is not opening up, but as the country is opening up, you're seeing more and more individuals that are they're using other people as their lightning rod because there's clearly something going on, but they're just frustrated. They're frustrated at the year. They can be frustrated with work. They're just frustrated overall, and it's just taking the toll of seeing all the time. You're seeing all these articles about people just raging, and I'm like, people are tense right now. It's very, very tense.
Well, I felt as though it was worse in the fall during the election cycle that had gotten so charged, and where we were experiencing things virtually, and social media had also been such an incubator of outrage. It's very easy to be impulsive with a comment on someone's post, and that had been kind of normalized, and in some ways it had been glorified. And I see it the temperature being lowered a little bit by some people trying to in positions of leadership trying to establish some precedent for how to tactfully handle disagreement.
I think where I'm seeing it the most, I mean, a lot of my friends own restaurants, and they're seeing that a lot where all of a sudden the common courtesy that you were raised with is out the window. And so I feel like that online is now coming back into like the human face-to-face, and wait staff, especially during the summer, it's a lot of young kids that are waiting tables, and they're just getting bombarded by very, very rude individuals. Not all, but there's a lot of people that are just taking it out on these young kids, and it's just really hard because this is their summer job before they go back to school, and they're like, this is not what I signed up for. Or even just like older individuals that are working in restaurants, they're happy to have their job is back, and people are just not understanding that they're real people too. Be nice to people.
Yeah. I've heard similar things from people who work flight attendants. Someone in Marblehead said, I'm going to work in a restaurant right now because being a flight attendant's getting a little bit too intense. There was the stewardess, the flight attendant that I grew up with the whole stewardess. Like when you go to other countries, like they wear the beautiful clothes and everything, and they love saying that they're stewardess. But in America, flight attendant, and someone broke a flight attendant's nose. I mean, because they had to wear their mask. I'm like, really? Because that's okay? That's not okay. It's just not okay. Where do you see? So right now, you are doing so well, having a boutique. You are doing so well going from show to show to show. You're going to Nordstrom's and it's empty now. I mean, like most of the big stores, the big box stores are empty. Yeah. What do you believe will happen to the industry? Like you are in the shoes, and I mean, like you're in the retail. Retail has shifted in so many different ways. How do you see it? Because I'm a person where I am a creature of habit, where I buy to replace, I don't buy to buy, but I spend 70% of my time overseas for clients. And when I leave the country, I buy because I know I'm not going to see a rack full of the same thing when I'm going to another country. They're custom made, which is amazing. And I'm coming back home and everyone's like, oh my God, look what you're wearing. Look what you're holding. So you are in that, like you design bags that are a conversation, a story, but there's a whole entire box retail that's out there. So what do you believe will happen to the retail stores, especially because everyone has been ordering on Amazon and online?
And now, a message from our sponsor. Since 2017, the Foundation for Business Equity has existed to support Black and Latinx-led companies in reaching their full potential by providing access to critical growth tools that include expanded networks, capital, and markets. To learn more about the Foundation for Business Equity, FBE, visit fbequity.org. And now, back to our guest.
I think the same thing that happened with farm to table, that the culinary movement 15 years ago, where farm to table became so prevalent, similar things are happening in all categories of consumer goods. And so knowing where something comes from, knowing that it's special, knowing that it was made for you, has value. And I think in New York, you've got designers like Christian Siriano who are really full in the atelier model, where people are coming into your shop, and Dapper Dan in Harlem as well. They are having pieces made for them, as opposed to a store that's going to have something on the shelf for a month, and then they need to mark it down, clear it out and get room for other stuff to come in. You go through that cycle enough times where you're like, I just bought this and it's on sale now. It doesn't feel special. And so I think that that's where stores are struggling. The big stores is that they're selling the same stuff on the East Coast that they're selling on the West Coast. This shouldn't be happening. These are completely different climates and customers and needs. And so one size does not fit all. And so I think that the smaller model, now designers in my category, the handmade designer maker, we'll call it, direct to consumer has taken a much bigger slice of the pie. The margins are much bigger if I'm selling something directly to an end user. And oftentimes my level of customer service isn't that different if I'm dealing with a store or if I'm dealing directly with the end user. And that's where being a media company, as you know, comes into play, because people are going to tune in to the network that has the best coverage. And that happens to be my Instagram right now. And what they're getting on other channels is a glimpse, but you know, if they want the whole a director's cut, they've got to come right to the source. And so that's what I see happening, is that well, first of all, no one's at an advantage right now because no one really knows what they're doing. We're all in the same boat, and so, or we're all in the same storm of how consumer habits are going to be shifting from in-person now, where it was e-commerce before. Who's doing that best? And I think in a tent outside, tomorrow I will be outside in Copley Park in Boston. Selling in an open market to passersby, people who are tourists traveling, staying in one of the hotels nearby, or catching them going between Neiman Marcus and Chanel. They just happen upon me. It's my sweet spot, and I think that it's for other people as well. So going back, rewinding, farm to table, the way that revolutionized culinary, the same thing is happening in and is poised to happen in all aspects of consumer shopping.
I think that's great that you just said, and I'm going to say, so we don't know when this is going to air, but you use a time frame. So when you hear this, he's not going to be at Copley, Boston, but let it be known, this is a perfect example where someone was in a Copley store in the mall, they walk out and they're like, I didn't find anything that was special. And they come right to you outside, which is the most amazing moment.
Can I tell you, if someone had said to me 2 years ago that I'd be set up on the sidewalk outside Neiman Marcus, I would be like, please shoot me now. It's like the guy with the on the ground with the knockoff Louis Vuitton bags. It's kind of like that. But
Canal Street in New York.
Yeah, but it's like a trunk show. It's like an open air trunk show, and you're meeting the actual designer. And if you know the elevator pitch, yes, I have my little thing, but I usually try to personalize it a little bit. And I'm not a pushy salesperson. I just have no tolerance for that. The timing has to be right for someone, and if it's not, it's not my fault. I want someone to feel as though I am indebted to them to buy something from me. I'm not desperate, but you know, I am motivated, and I am ambitious, and so these markets have been a great opportunity to kind of catch the tailwind of the luxury shopping, or the box stores, catch customers who are off guard because suddenly they're getting personal attention. And what is this? This person
personal attention. What's that? Which of course, this is where I'm going to go for the personal attention.
Yeah.
Behind you, we are looking at these amazing bags. Pick 4 of the favorites on that, and what inspired you.
Well, I showed you this one. This is my signature piece. That is it's sort of the foundation of the collection, and so I personally like this because this is my signature piece. This bag I made 5 years ago. I like holding it like this. I'm judging you.
I was gonna say, is this for Ruthie?
Yeah. So the American Museum, the National Museum of American Jewish History originally ordered this piece 5 years ago as part of for something to sell in their souvenir shop for an exhibit they were doing on Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I've been making it for 5 years. This past year, when Justice Ginsburg sadly died, my website blew up. It was crazy that weekend, the number of pieces that were selling. People were just, they were stunned. They didn't know what to do, and purchasing this bag somehow just felt like something they had to do at that moment. So I was able to, as a result of that, of these unexpected sales, to the ACLU and Planned Parenthood. So I felt like this moment in time has given me an opportunity to give in a way that makes this only has meaning, and it's not like I'm capitalizing off of a tragedy for my own benefit. And then a couple of weeks later, I saw Mariska Hargitay use this bag on Law and Order's Special Victims Unit. And
no way!
She chose it herself too. They've got a bunch of bags in their wardrobe department. And I will tell you this, I will sell to anyone. I have customers on the whole range of the spectrum. Nobody has any doubts about who I am, I'm like, hi, I'm gay. My name is Kent, and so there's no doubt there, but I will sell to other people. I don't need to, I'm not going to not sell to you because, we don't see eye to eye on everything. I do think that this is a friendly thing that I make. And in that spirit, I don't want to make someone feel as though they're not welcome. So maybe not this piece for some people, but that's okay. I'll have another bag. And I think I do my work best when someone looks at something and says, this bag was made for me. This bag has an oyster on it. I have to have it. And it has like an actual, let's see.
Well, all right. So that was one of the things that I thought that, it's not that I thought, I love, because I'm looking at the sushi and there's a sushi on it. I'm looking at, let's see, the piano. Does the piano have something on it? Music keys? Well, how did you get inspired to do that? Because that right there is what makes it, the bags pop already, but that extra accent of making that thing that they handle, like, where did that come from?
I've always liked, these are accessories. And so I feel like having an embellishment or an accessory on your accessory is kind of funny. And also because the shape it's an envelope clutch. It does expand open, but it's relatively flat. And so to have something that is so jarringly three-dimensional on this thing that's kind of visually flat is it's a paradox, and I think it's funny in that sense.
Even with the Macrons behind you, which is perfect.
You pronounced it properly. Nice job. If someone says macaroon, I'm like, do I need to correct them? A macaroon is a coconut cookie. This is a macaron.
So full disclosure, my mom's a chef, so
okay.
She would kill it. My mom's a chef, number one, and also I'm Haitian and I can speak French, so
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt. I have enjoyed this conversation so much because, again, you've given so much. You're very chill, but with such excitement coming out of your voice for a chill person. So I love that so much. And I've said this before, this is not the last conversation because there's other ways that I'm going to make sure that you're always top of mind. I don't want anyone that I interview, I never want you to be forgotten. I want you guys to always be top of mind. And this is just another way to get yourself out there. So I'm ending with my last question that I ask of everybody. And for anyone that's listening, I tell everyone literally just before we start recording. I don't tell them in advance because I want to find out what your thoughts are as your day begins. As your day is going, you never know what you're going to ask. So here it is. If you had a personal ask and a professional ask of anyone that's listening to you right now, what would be your personal ask and what would be your professional ask? 2 answers, please.
Okay, so my personal ask is it's got to be make lots of friends, please. And my professional ask is, if this resonates with you and you know someone who you think might get it, can you share my website, kentstetson.com, with them? Whether it's a person who you know who is a really fashionable person who loves to collect handbags, or whether you know someone who owns a store and is always looking for unique and exciting products. The Kenterprise takes a village, as I like to say, and I would appreciate any assistance if you can connect me with someone who you think might have something interesting to contribute to this work.
There's certain bags already that I already know that I am making. When I saw you before, I was like, I know people that would definitely buy from you. But also to make friends. My grandmother taught me where throughout your life, you make friends with all ages, all sizes, all ethnicities, because when you die, you'll have a full house. My grandmother died at 95 years old and 2 weeks, and she had a full house of all age people that were her friends. So I love that you just put that one out there, and it's very important to make friends with everyone. And I have to say, you are beyond talented, my friend. Beyond. I mean, this is something that I would be used to seeing overseas, not in America. I'm so impressed by you. I love it. Round of applause to you. You rock. Thank you so very much for being here. I really do appreciate you sharing your full story. Because at the beginning, you're like, I'm just gonna stick to work. No, the full story of who Kent is. And the most important is happy 20th anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's amazing. And the good thing is, even after the pandemic, you're saying I'm celebrating 20 years.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because I think that a lot of people are like, wow, the world is our buffer. And when you're married to someone and the world isn't your buffer anymore, you really have to realize, I did good. Did you do good?
We did well.
Yeah.
There's a few things that we can laugh about now that weren't funny at the time, but
I think that everyone needs that. Like, at the end of the day, everyone needs that. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for saying yes to me. I mean, I cannot wait to see your next show in Marblehead. I believe that would be Christmas. I think that you'll be back for Christmas, maybe.
My schedule is listed on my website. You can see where in the world I'm popping up.
And you're traveling. Are you back to doing shows, like traveling, like on planes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All
Okay.
over.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.